Stargate, what is it? It was announced on January the 21st, and it is a $100 billion project with the option to expand to 500 billion with a B over the next 4 years. There are some major tech players in the market that are backing this. We're talking OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and MGX as well. And really, the ultimate goal is that it's aimed at securing U.S. leadership in AI and boosting competitiveness over China. So, Kyler, when you first heard about this initiative, what were your thoughts? I was a little blown away. I have a lot of questions, but what were your initial thoughts
Well, I
when this
think
was announced?
Yeah, I think, you and I are always on the same wavelength as, technology implementation specialists. We want to know like the what, the how, the when. We
Yeah,
want that timeline right now. And we kind of have to back up and look at, this is a huge step for specifically the US government, which is just, we are a capitalist society. So a lot of times the private sector and public sector don't always partner up. They can be kind of
right.
siloed. And I think that that's a great kind of model to just see that these groups are coming together to create a strategy to benefit the overall population of the United States. And then also to trickle down that leadership to local governments as well. So I think if nothing else, that really showcases like, hey, let's all get the right people in the room and start to talk about an AI strategy. I think one thing that the unknowns really do is create kind of this assumptions, right? In local government. I know you recently did like an amazing video on how to actually talk to your constituents about AI. But that's
Yeah.
the one thing that I think they really need to define is like, what is AI? And that's what
Hmm.
organizations really need to define for themselves. Is it automating your supply chain so that you have some sort of predictive maintenance? Is it,
Hmm.
looking at your school district and ensuring that you have, bite-sized learning modules? What does AI mean? And that's why we have so much competition in the marketplace, because there's all of these really niche options. But I think my first reaction, and I'm curious to hear yours, was good for them to start this conversation and
Hmm.
bring in the experts that really understand not only the functionality, but the implementation needs for this type of kind of federal initiative.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's a great thought. And I think my initial reaction was pure excitement because I'm with you. I think it's great that someone put a plan together and said, hey, this is how we're going to try to build this thing out, right?
Mhm.
But the other piece of me was a little bit terrified,
Yeah.
just in particularly in how it's going to impact my clients, right? And dealing in the local government space, we deal with a lot of older infrastructure, right, and older processes, and so in terms of AI readiness, they're not ready,
Mm,
and so how do they make this huge
such a
jump to now get
good.
ready to utilize this big initiative? And so let's talk a little bit about um, what are the key features, right? So the infrastructure development is a big piece to this initiative, and what that means is that massive data centers are going
Uh-huh.
to be peppered, throughout the United States, and one is already being built or has been built, right, in Abilene, Texas.
Mhm.
And so, what does that mean for our local communities and cities and counties in which these data centers are going to be built?
Yeah.
What does it mean for them? Right.
Yeah.
And that's the first thought I had,
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, a data center. Number one, what does that mean? What types of data are going to be housed there, and who's going to manage this data? Like who's working in these centers?
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to talk about that
Yeah.
because that is the biggest key feature to all of this. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, amen. I mean, that is such an important conversation. And I think you really hit the nail on the head of really defining and unpacking what is artificial intelligence. I
Yep.
think the cloud infrastructure of artificial intelligence, my friend Brad Feeks puts it perfectly in the fact that using the cloud is just using someone else's computer. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not kind of just living in this untangible universe, especially for government data, right? It's living in actual data centers. And there's still a lot of compliance around where that is. So just because your data is not in-house or on-premise, as we call it a lot of times, the data centers in which your cloud hosting platforms are utilizing, that's where your data is being stored. And if you've ever been in one of these, it's like going into Fort Knox. Like you go through the metal detectors, there's armed guards, you surrender that, you sign in blood. They're very high security. So that's one thing that I think is so important to understand, is there is
Yeah.
a physical location for cloud platforms that are
Mm-hmm.
used in data centers. And I first think that it's great that we're using data centers or building data centers in the United States to have access to that from that standpoint, as opposed to offshore data centers, which we utilize
Mm-hmm.
a lot. So for local governments, being able to kind of manage that opens up job opportunities in construction, in architecture, in maintenance. I think Avalon, and correct me, or Abilene, correct me if I'm wrong. I
Yes.
think it's like 180,000 jobs or something that
Wow.
is coming into that infrastructure. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge piece of it. I think the physical piece will be the easy part, as you mentioned, for the readiness, the
Yeah.
figuring out your data strategy, which is really the foundation of an AI strategy, is going to be the challenge for these governments or these local governments, even the
Mm-hmm.
private sector. We have a
Right.
lot of that in as
Mm-hmm.
challenges. And that's why you really need someone to come in, take a look at your data, and give you a strategy of like how you're going to cleanse it, how you're going to automate it. Because when you do a lift and shift strategy, which we say in the industry, even if you lift and shift broken processes, unhealthy data, that's going to be, garbage output in your new system. It doesn't
It's not going to
matter
work.
what that means. So that's going to be the biggest piece of that. And I'm curious, what your thoughts are on that, and knowing that you really are the top readiness expert when it comes to the public sector, because that's a piece that we really have to figure out immediately. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't need to be a huge implementation project for you to get that foundations into place.
Right, right. And I couldn't agree more. And my thought is that the data, the cleanliness of your data and your data is the base of any AI project, right? I mean, we're looking at AI, utilizing AI internally here at Avero. And the
Right.
reality of it is our data has to be a little bit more clean to be able to use the AI platforms that we want to use for certain processes. And so I think it really does. I agree with you, Kyler. I think it starts there. If you don't know, where your data lives, that's your first
Mhm.
issue. And if your data isn't clean, it's like you said, if we lift and shift all of that into an AI platform, it's not going to work for you like you think. And you can't just, I say this all the time, you can't just plug in a new technology, whether it be
Mhm.
AI, a new piece of software, whatever it is, there's planning that needs to go into it. Because if you lift everything and do everything the same way you've been doing for years into a new system, it's not going to automate or be as efficient as you need it to be. So yes, that is what we are talking to our clients about
Mhm.
right now. Is we're coming in and we're asking, certain questions around AI readiness, and all of them have to do with where's your data and how clean is it, and do we need to clean it up?
Mhm.
Can we organize it a little bit better? So we will be announcing later to come in February. We're going to be announcing our AI readiness assessment offering that we will be just small plug.
Yeah,
But no,
always.
I couldn't agree more. I could not
Yeah.
agree more.
Yeah.
I'm still excited about, how it's going to change the entire economy, not
Mhm.
just in Texas, not just in places where these data centers are housed, but it's going to change. I mean, think about healthcare and national security. I think one of the podcasts I listened to, they were talking about how these data centers and the computing that goes into finding cures for cancer and
Oh yeah.
personalized wellness plans. Like, that's crazy to me. And my first thought around that piece is, are there people in healthcare that really understand what that could mean for them and for their industry? Same thing with local government. Like, are there
Absolutely.
those experts that can understand this data and how it could work for them? And I guess fast pace their processes, right?
Mhm.
Like, are there those experts in these fields that understand it? And is that knowledge there? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a point, and that's the cool part about AI, just to kind of piggyback off of your plug for readiness, is if you don't know what you're doing, if you're like, okay, I
Hmm.
know that we need to get on this wavelength, but I have no idea like how to get there, that's totally
Hmm.
normal. Go through these processes, invest in a readiness assessment. You can absolutely do your own project after that, anything. But you
Yeah.
at least need to know what your current state is. And I think that's a big piece to this puzzle. And for AI, the cool part is we don't need to do a massive, say, ERP,
Mm-mm.
HCM overhaul, right? We just need to look at a business unit and create a proof of concept. So you mentioned healthcare. Say they
Hmm.
did this with the Food and Drug Administration, right? And
Hmm.
focused on kind of automating these ingredients, making sure that whatever kind of policies they had around drug distribution, having that as far as AI mining these opportunities to look at where processes may be broken within federal food and drug distribution. That's one area of the business or the government, right, of the
Hmm.
organization in which you can implement AI, utilize that as a proof of concept to then scale throughout the rest of your organization. Because a lot of times when we're looking at AI, we see niche systems that need to be integrated into one clean core, whether that's,
Hmm.
your ERP system, whether that's a best of breed stack. We need to just make sure that that is all working together. And now we've gone from these big monolithic systems, right, to a more niche systems that actually give you what you need. So it's almost become as unique as, a person's DNA is
Right.
their technology within an organization. And that's why it's so critical to have someone on your side like Avero, because they're dedicated to your goals, not what AI,
Right.
the vendor or your ERP vendor wants you to buy. I'm sure
Hmm.
Tyler Tech wants you to buy a certain AI that they have invested in, that they want to implement in your organization. So going straight to your vendor is going to be a risk for you because you might
Hmm.
not get exactly what you need as far as what's going to be best for your local government or your organization. So I think that piece of it is going to be really interesting of how they implement it and where in the government.
Right.
Is it going
Hmm.
to be in transportation? There's so much opportunities there, especially with, we don't all have a $500 billion budget over here,
That's right. Hmm.
exactly how that's going to work.